you succeed in bringing them online, you still have the issue of moving them around the country. What are your plans? Because we always hear pipelines are being vandalized. And there's news out there that there are moves towards privatizing the pipelines. Yes. How true is that?
That's true, because what we've done, we've had the JTF, we have JTF in place, and yet the pipelines are being vandalized. And that means there's something that we're not doing right. And so we've decided, let's look at alternatives. Call in private investors, people who can actually maintain and protect those pipelines. I mean, there are so many technology, there's so much technology available. You have the drones, you have the sensors. Bring those all in, and then work with the security to make sure that once you detect intervention of people trying to tamper with the pipelines, then the military, which the Mr. President had approved, should work with us. That's the Army Corps of Engineers, would be called in to intervene.
But when the Minister of State came on board, some contracts that were signed earlier to protect the pipelines were revoked. I mean, at that point in time, was it necessary to have done that then? And it was as if immediately that happened, we had the situation of scarcity. Almost immediately that happened.
That's to tell you that sometimes those contracts, first of all, were revoked or had expired. They weren't revoked, they had expired and were not renewed. We had, I think some of the militants, OPC, guarding the pipelines. What has happened now is that it shows that there's some sabotage in the pipelines. I mean, there's no explanation. We've had these pipelines, and yet with all the security, you have the armed forces, you have the Navy, you have the police, you have all the security agents protecting these pipelines, and yet those pipelines are being vandalized almost consistently every day.
You know what I'm thinking? Going around, it would seem as if you don't have some kind of stringent laws guarding or regulating people in the industry. Let's go back to what you found out while you went around the country. You saw some bit of diversion, and you saw some bit of exploitation from marketers selling above the prices of petroleum, because it really doesn't make sense if taxpayers' monies are being used to subsidize some of these products, and they come in at the end of the day, and the same citizens are getting to buy the products quite higher than what is stipulated. What are those things do you think that can be done to really stop people from doing what they're doing? We thought by now we should be able to have a better monitoring system of these trucks when they load from point and they go into a particular petrol station. Do you have any of that, or are you working towards that?
You see, PPMC has a peculiar problem. When anything happens in the downstream, there's a queue. PPMC is called for everything. So when an issue relates to DPR, which actually does the monitoring, PPMC is called. And that's why we've stepped up and we're working very closely with DPR to make sure these things are taken care of. Yes, we have the Petroleum Equalization Fund that has some software that tracks the trucks. However, what we need is real time, so that once a truck diverts, you can actually see it on your iPad. That isn't in place yet, but DPR has said, we were all there yesterday, and has said that they're taking steps to make sure those things, all the monitoring and the close monitoring, because once we have the close monitoring of trucks, diversion would be minimized. Maybe not absolutely removed, but at least minimized to a very, very bare minimum.
Because, sorry, Nito, because it's absolutely necessary that these are traced and these are monitored to the extent that when there is any diversion, a red flag is raised, maybe at the monitoring point.
Yes, and that's why I have to keep on going back. That's why we have to work with DPR. DPR ought to monitor. PPMC supplies and distributes. DPR works with the marketers to make sure that the prices are right, that they do not divert fuel. But we have taken it upon ourselves, because we are the face that the public see. And so all our management staff and staff are out there in the field, working 12 midnight. We have shifts 12 midnight to 6 a.m. Everyone, including myself, we are all out there because that's when the sharp practices take place.
So when is your shift?
My
Sorry.
shift, I,
On the lighter mode.
I stayed awake till 4 and then got dressed to come here. And the funny thing that happened coming down here was that none of the filling stations were open. And then you had trucks at the side waiting. And yet people were queuing. What we intend to do in Lagos, for instance, today, is we're going to bring in 100 trucks, 60,000 metric tons, 60,000 liters. 100 of them, if you're not selling, we'll intervene. We will force you to buy.
I'm happy that you observed what is going on in petrol stations. You can even see some of them on screen now. What you see is other people on the queue without anyone dispensing petrol. People also have their jerrycans. This was actually taken in the wee hours, late in the night, and you see that a lot of people are still very much stranded in that particular report. But as I did say, people just would want to know how this can, get off as a problem. And if you say we are already expecting about 26 cargoes, and you say 3 has arrived, in other words,
2 have arrived. We have 4 for this week. 2 have berthed, and the other 2 are coming in later.
Are these enough for the country?
1 billion liters?
I mean, you have the figures. I wouldn't know the consumption
Oh,
rate.
certainly. The consumption is about 40 million liters a day.
Don't forget, we have generators, we have cars, we
Yes.
have a whole lot of stuff to do with petrol product.
In fact, there's been debate, is it really up to, or is it just, but to be on the safe side, that's what we're working on.
Is this also affecting the sale of diesel, AGO?
Diesel is another problem on its own. I mean, diesel, kerosene, those are different issues. But what we have right now is the need to bridge that gap that had been created by other marketers not supplying their own allocation to make sure that Nigerians. So what we're doing is to just flood the market with petrol.
PPMC is a big, sorry, is a big marketer here, and if you say for now, PPMC has come to the rescue, exceeding the percentage given to it by extant law there. How soon do you think other marketers or other importers of petroleum products can come into the fray to assist?
I cannot guess what their plans are. We are hoping they step up to the plate, but in the meantime, we are not waiting for them. We will do our own bits because we have a duty to dispense fuel nationwide, and Nigerians deserve better.
How do you manage this dispensing of fuel nationwide? Do you have trucks owned by PPMC, or you have companies licensed by PPMC to move these trucks? Do you have agreement? What kind of agreements do you have with these people?
All the majors have trucks assigned. I mean, they have their own trucks. Then they also have independent marketers. PPMC does not own trucks of its own.
Okay, so when they pick up these products, they sign out.
They sign out. Like if you have a major marketer, you're supposed to go to your own filling station and dispense.
Do they tell you where they're taking each truck to?
What we've enforced right now is when you're picking up the products, we want to know the exact destination. If you're going to up north, for instance, you'd have to go through Suleja. In Suleja, we now get a report you've arrived there. Sometimes you've seen funny. There's one incident where a truck came in with water in Suleja, and that we have a chemist, we have a laboratory in Suleja that actually does a random test of products coming in, and then from Suleja, you
Wait a minute. Perhaps this is a case of diversion, and